introduce ourselves. To start off, my name is Gabby. I am a second-year student studying human biology, bioethics, and psychology at the University of Toronto. I am incredibly blessed to have worked on this event with my fellow teammates over the past few months. We hope that through this event and sharing the story of Blessed Chiara and Carlo, the Holy Spirit will enlighten a fire in your hearts too.
My name is Sean, and I'm in my second year of International Relations at the University of Calgary. It's been a privilege to work with all the wonderful people on this team and to learn about these two inspiring saints. I'm grateful God has guided me here.
My name is Mariel. I'm a second-year behavioral neuroscience student at Simon Fraser University here in Vancouver, BC. It's been a wonderful journey discovering the lives of these saints. I look forward to sharing how we can follow their examples of holiness and hope.
Hi everyone, my name is Cecilia. I'm a first-year student studying life sciences at the University of Toronto, and preparing for this event has definitely enriched my understanding of Carlo and Chiara, and listening and learning more about their stories has motivated me to develop a closer relationship with God.
Hey, I'm Steven. I'm currently in my second year of engineering at SFU. Lately, I've been spending a lot of time with my family and studying hard. I'm really happy to be here to celebrate the lives of these awesome saints, well, blesseds, Carlo and Chiara.
Now, as some of you have read in our blurb, we want this event to help us recognize that sainthood is achievable, and Carlo and Chiara can inspire us to find our highway to heaven. We only have one life to live, so how can we find true fulfillment and meaning? Let's get to know these two extraordinary youth through storytelling and artistic performances.
In the Catholic Church, a saint is someone who has led a life of heroic virtue. This definition includes the four cardinal virtues: prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice, as well as the theological virtues: faith, hope, and charity. A saint displays these qualities in a consistent and exceptional way.
We canonize them because the Church would like to remember them, so that their lives have continued influence on people throughout the ages.
They are a model for holiness, a point of reference, a sister, a brother, a confidant to whom to establish a personal relationship with.
We Catholics seek for saints' intercession because they're more closely united to Christ. We've invited Father Julio Lagos, the chaplain of SFU, to explain it better. Hi, Father Julio. Why do Catholics ask saints to intercede for them for God?
Yes, remember that actually the apostle says they were holy, but above all, spiritual gifts. We think of the Eucharist, the faith. So everyone striving on earth to be holy, you and I can help each other because we're united in spiritual bonds. And this unity extends beyond the here and now to those undergoing purification in purgatory and those who are already in heaven, the saints. It might be good to mention a wonderful phrase from the book of Revelation where St. John says that the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding with golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. All of us believers are together in the body of Christ and can help one another, but the saints who merited the eternal reward for us help us gain specific graces. If we think about them as mediators, the best mediator of all is our Blessed Mother, Mary, who intercedes for every one of us because she loves us dearly. If we think about her at the scene of Galilee, is present. Mary seeks his help, telling him they have no wine. And Jesus turns the water into wine for the newlywed couple. That's the best example of that mediation that we require and want for when we ask saints, and above all, Mary.
Thank you, Father Julio, for the clear explanation. Now let's learn about Carlo first. Cecilia and Stephen will present about his life.
All right. So Carlo Acutis was born in London on May 3rd, 1991, as an only child and moved to Milan, Italy with his family soon after. He spent his school education in Milan and his high school studies were under the Jesuits. He was a kind-hearted and righteous boy who supported friends with divorced parents, defended the rights of disabled people, and peers who were bullied at school. Moreover, he often brought food and sleeping bags to the poor people in his community. Carlo looked to numerous saints as his model. Although Carlo was an obedient and mature boy, he struggled with defects like anyone else would. For example, he recognized his tendency to spend too much time on his PlayStation. After that, he limited himself to an hour a week. He also loved eating, but found himself overindulging from time to time. In this case, he would practice temperance so that he could enjoy the good things in life without letting them control him. He was not perfect, but he had a strong will. Furthermore, from a young age, he was very curious about the faith, for which was unusual because his parents were not practicing Catholics. His questions led his mother to seek out catechists, which in turn brought her back to the faith.
Carlo strengthened his faith and relationship with Jesus through his Eucharistic life and Marian devotion. From the day he received his first communion at the age of 7, he never missed an appointment at the daily Mass. He always tried, either before or after the Eucharistic celebration, to pause before the tabernacle to adore the Lord, always truly present in the Blessed Sacrament. Our Lady was his great confidant, and he prayed the Rosary daily. Carlo made his confession once a week, and he kept a journal where he reflected on his behavior.
He was known to bike and greet everyone he met. For him, even a greeting was an expression of charity. It is said of him, "With Carlo, I never talked, but his way of greeting touched many hearts." His family had a lady who helped with housework. Carlo helped her daughter with homework and helped with ironing so that the lady could go home early and spend time with her daughter. His family was rich, but he only kept the essential things.
Those around Carlo knew he had a passion for and exceptional skill with computers. Carlo's interests involved computer programming, film editing, web design, and helping those most in need, especially children and the elderly. His greatest project was cataloging all the Eucharistic miracles in the world. He started the project when he was 11 years old and wrote at the time, "The more Eucharist we receive, the more we will become like Jesus, so that on this earth we will have a foretaste of heaven." Acutis researched over 136 Eucharistic miracles that occurred over the centuries in different countries around the world, and have been acknowledged by the Church, and collected them into a virtual museum. Besides creating a website to house this virtual museum, he helped create panel presentations that have traveled around the world. Carlo found joy in using his God-given talents for those around him.
Carlo contracted fulminant leukemia at the age of 15. He suffered tremendously, but continued to smile, and when the doctor treating him asked him if he was suffering much pain, he responded that there are people who suffer much more than me. He offered his pain for Pope Benedict XVI, and for the Universal Church, for which he said, "I offer all the suffering I will have to suffer for the Lord, for the Pope, and the Church." He died after 3 days of illness on October 12, 2006. Before he died, he told his mother, "Mama, I would like to leave this hospital, but I know I will not do so alive. I will give you signs, though, that I am with God." He also told his mom not to be afraid through the words, "Because with the incarnation of Jesus, death became life, and there is no need to escape. In eternal life, something extraordinary awaits us." Carlo was aware that his life was fully lived. He said, "I died happy because I do not spend my life wasting my time on things not pleasing God." Carlo asks of us to do the same thing. He asks us to spread the gospel through our lives so that each of us can be a beacon to light the journey of others. At his funeral, his parents were surprised to see so many people, including people they didn't know, people of other faiths, and homeless. He was buried in Assisi in accordance with his wishes. Although he did not have long on this earth, he lived his life full of love in union with Jesus.
A Brazilian boy was said to have fought the disease after praying to Carlo, asking him to communicate with God. The Vatican said the miracle had been approved by the Medical Council of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. Pope Francis confirmed this miracle in a decree on February 21, 2020, which enabled Acutis to be beatified at the Papal Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi on Saturday, October 10th. More than 41,000 people visited Blessed Carlo Acutis' tomb during the 19-day celebration of the Italian teen's beatification, according to the Diocese of Assisi. There, they saw a young boy on the path to sainthood, lying in repose in jeans and a pair of Nike tennis shoes. In his homily, Cardinal Vallini phrased the sentiment beautifully. Carlo's beatification is good news, a powerful proclamation that a youth of our times, someone like many of us, has been conquered by Christ and has become a radiant light for those who want to know him.
So that concludes our presentation for Carlo Acutis, and we are now going to play a song that titled "I'm No Photocopy."
Do you worry that you're just a face in a crowd, that you're wasting your time chasing shadows around? Too many times you felt good for nothing, but you're the only you, and believe me, that's something. 'Cause life is too short to just be someone else. Let go of your fear and try being yourself. Singing God only knows what the future holds for me. But one thing's for sure, I'm no photocopy. Try to get up after falling down. Don't think you're in too deep and there's no getting out now. There's more to you than mistakes that you made. There'll be more falls to come, but don't be afraid. 'Cause life is too short to just sit there in guilt. You made mistakes, but keep moving on still. Singing God only knows what the future holds for me. But one thing's for sure, I'm no photocopy. Life's not a waste of time, oh no. And I won't be wasting mine as long as I stand by you. Yeah, you'll always come through. Life is too short to just sleep it away. So wake up thankful for the gift of today. Singing God only knows what the future holds for me. But one thing's for sure, I'm no photocopy. One thing's for sure, I'm no photocopy. I'm no photocopy. One thing's for sure, I'm no photocopy. God only knows. I'm no photocopy.
Wow, what an invigorating song. Thank you to Stephen and Cecilia for the wonderful presentation. Carlo's words, "Do not waste a single minute in your life doing anything that displeases God," really hits home for me. They help me to realign everything I do day to day, from homework to chores to enjoying bubble tea, all for the greater glory of God. Stephen, you wrote the lyrics to "I'm No Photocopy." Could you share with us your motivation behind the song and what it means for you?
So first of all, Blessed Carlo is a really meaningful person for me because he's a lot like me, right? We're both young programmers. We enjoy the same things like video games and food. And to see someone like that be in heaven, it's just an inspiration, someone I can aspire to be like. And so one of my favorite quotes from him is, "We're all born as originals, but many of us die as photocopies." And I wanted to share that message through the song. Myself and many others, we sort of buy into an idea, or we follow people sort of trying to live up to them and be them. But few of us actually take the time to just be ourselves and who God created us to be. And we're so much happier when we do that. So that's why I wrote the song, to sort of share that message.
Nice. Thank you, Stephen. And what about you, Cecilia? How was your experience in making the slides on Carlo Acutis?
I had a wonderful time making the slides. It was definitely really nice to see photographs captured throughout his life. So when he was a baby, when he was a young boy, and then when he was a teenager. And that constantly just reminded me that, you know, Carlo was just like any other young boy. And so we can all strive towards sainthood.
All right, now let's move on to Chiara, Luce, Badano.
Now that you've learned about Carlo's story, we'd like to share another one, the story of a young girl, Chiara Luce Badano, and her inspirational life.
Chiara was a caring girl, taking care of classmates in need and spending time with the marginalized. She became a committed member of the Focolare movement and then brought her parents into it. The community was an important part of her formation as her love for Jesus grew, participating in Focolare activities.
Chiara Lubick, the founder of the Focolare movement, gave her the name Luce, meaning light, because of her radiant positivity.
I'm sure that after you've met her, you will never feel you have to face the challenges in life alone. Chiara Luce is a beacon of light in such dark, confusing times. She constantly reminds me that we are not alone in our suffering and in our joy, that the light of Christ ceaselessly guides our hearts on the highway to heaven.
Her story is one of hope through trying circumstances, and it is a story that we can all individually relate to and learn from. We encourage you to reflect on how you can connect to her story in your own unique way.
Please enjoy this short documentary about Chiara Luce, which we will screen for you this evening. Thank you.
Won't I be able to run anymore? Won't I be able to walk anymore? Won't I be able to practice sports anymore? All my friends, my tennis, the mountains, the beach. Mom, is it fair to die at 17?
Chiara was born and grew up in good health and was a blessing for us. Nevertheless, we felt deep inside that she was not exclusively our daughter. Firstly and most importantly, she was a child of God, and thus it was our duty to let her grow up in her freedom.
Sassello was my home village, a corner in northern Italy where the sea and the mountains were all around us. As I loved diving and adored hiking, it was the most beautiful place in the world. It was my little Switzerland. This is where I grew up, along with other children, guided by my parents' teachings.
One day, she was playing in her room. I opened the door and said, "Chiara, you've got lots of toys, haven't you? Why don't you send some to more unfortunate children who have nothing to play with at all?" She replied, "No, they're mine." After a while, she called me and asked me to bring her a plastic bag. I noticed that she was separating the toys. She put the new ones into the bag. I said, "Chiara, these are the new ones." She replied, "You know, unfortunate children shouldn't be given broken toys."
It was with her, my mother, that I started paying attention to an inner voice, Jesus. When you listen to that voice, you always do what he asks you to do. But if I were asked for my most beautiful childhood memory, I'd have no doubt at all. I remember it like it was yesterday. On that day, the lives of my parents and mine changed forever. I was 9 years old. We went to Rome for the Family Fest, a great event for families. I was so excited.
We arrived at the stadium, went inside, and I distinctly remember when shortly afterwards Chiara turned to me and said, "Dad, I'm hungry." But we didn't have any food with us. A few moments went by. Then I see a lady handing us a sandwich, and from the other side, another lady giving us an orange drink. I was so impressed by these people, their love, the way they showed it.
The new generation of the Focolare movement. I remember when first meeting her, I noticed how neatly she dressed, in a simple way. This headband she wore, her flowing hair, the smile she gave me. We became friends right away. Chiara almost immediately had problems at school. She was very decided on attending a high school for classical studies, and during her first year, she was very enthusiastic about this choice. After a few months had gone by, one of the teachers called her parents to tell them that it may not have been the right choice for her.
I flunked. What a shock. It took me quite some time to recover, and still today when I think about it, I feel sad. But this defeat made me understand an important thing Chiara Lubick had said years before. There are no joys if one does not cope with sorrows as Jesus did on the cross, who felt forsaken by his Father. Now I want to choose him as my only spouse, to be prepared, to meet him.
The new academic year began, and Chiara turned over a new leaf. She rarely looked back to mull over what happened that previous year. She simply accepted it. She was a lively girl. She was very loved, and many of the boys were interested in her. And she was able to listen to you, silently, with no interruption. When you were with her, talking to her, there was nothing else in her world but you.
It was at that time, when Chiara was attending high school, that she started feeling some pain in her shoulder. We took her to the doctor. It was 7:30 a.m. No one would ever have imagined such a devastating diagnosis. The doctor came out and asked, "Are you her parents?" "Yes. Your daughter has a tumor." One of the worst kinds, an osteosarcoma. Upon hearing that, I felt like this drowning buzzing inside of me. I cannot explain it. I can't describe the anguish I felt deep inside. I can't find words for it.
As soon as Chiara arrived in Turin, she was admitted here at the Molinette Hospital. I remember accompanying her during her initial recovery. After, I would often go with her mother, Teresa, on her daily visits. There was a special atmosphere between them. Chiara was like a magnet. We were drawn to her by her way of speaking, by her simple way of appreciating any attention paid to her.
Chiara underwent the surgery to remove the cancer.
We arrived shortly before she was brought downstairs. She was already on the stretcher. She said, "Mom, if I happen not to wake up, make sure when you are preparing the Mass to tell all the Gen boys and girls to sing as loud as they can."
We were waiting anxiously for the outcome of this very long operation.
The following morning, I heard Chiara saying as she woke up, "Why, Jesus?" I immediately got up and went to her bedside, and I said, "Chiara, do you need anything?" I heard her replying, "If you want it, Jesus, I want it too."
It is all clear now. I will not recover. There's no doubt. I have a tumor. The doctors told me. Jesus, why? Why me?
I could see from the expression on her face the anguish Chiara was going through. She knew that she had to give Jesus her yes, not only in joyful moments, but especially in sorrowful ones. But she couldn't. It's too natural for a 17-year-old to want to live. After 25 minutes or so, she turned to me with her usual smile. Her face became radiant, full of light, and with a beautiful smile, she said, "Mom, okay. Now you can speak."
Ever since my legs went crazy, my life has changed. Won't I be able to walk anymore? Mum kept saying, Jesus took your legs away, but gave you wings. Losing my friends and the possibility to share our lives was very tough for me. I couldn't stop that train taking me away from them. But another world was waiting for me, and I had to abandon myself to it. I felt wrapped by design of beauty that little by little was revealing itself. Time passed by and I turned 18 years old. It might seem absurd, but I felt that I had it all and I could give much more. Like the money I used to receive that I immediately sent to Africa, where it would definitely be more useful.
Era San Valentino e dice mamma tu devi andare.
It was St. Valentine's Day. Chiara told me, "Mom, you must go to the hairdresser." "No," I said, "I won't." She remarked, "You're afraid of what people would say. Look at her. Her daughter is dying and she wants to go to the hairdresser." You know, it was a small village. Then Chiara said, "You must go because tonight you should celebrate with Dad." When I was on the stairs and ready to leave, she added, "Forget me. Look into each other's eyes and say I love you." I never cried, but at that moment Ruggiero noticed it, saying, "Now you're starting to cry." "I'm crying," I told him, "because Chiara is getting us used to being by ourselves."
I remember that Chiara told me, "Dad, every time we have such a strong presence of Jesus in our midst, we are the happiest family in the world."
Queste lunghe conversazioni fatte con lei nella sua cameretta.
Our long talks in her room convinced me that this girl demonstrated a maturity superior to her age, far, far superior. A maturity that grasps the core of Christianity, counting on the certainty of God's love, and returning it, as she said, with her, yes, always.
Intanto iniziava.
Meanwhile, she was beginning to understand that perhaps her time was approaching, and she was preparing us for that moment.
Lei desiderava anche. She also wanted to share with me about her meeting Jesus soon. I remember her saying, "You know, I'd like my funeral to be a celebration."
E quindi lì si preparò.
So they chose the songs. Kika recorded them as they sang with such joy.
Ho capito che se noi fossimo sempre in questa disposizione d'animo, pronti a tutto, quanti segni Dio ci manderebbe. Ho compreso anche quante volte Dio ci passa accanto e noi non ci rendiamo conto. Adesso vi saluto, anche se avrei tantissime altre cose da dirvi. Ma ecco, alla prossima puntata. Ciao a tutti.
Penso che alla fine di tutto
I think in the end, it's not so important to understand why something happened, but rather, what opportunity is being offered to you by such an event, how you come to face and live certain problems and situations after such an experience.
Reflection, shadow, light. Each one seems so right, like a sun among the million stars to bathe with light.
After reflecting on her story, I learned from Chiara Luce what it means to live out God's love through a communal spirituality. She illuminated this deeper desire I felt to be spiritually united with all the people I loved, friends and family, and even those whom I have never met or known before. Chiara showed me that loving Jesus, loving other people, through God and with God, is the only and ultimate objective of our life.
What struck me about Chiara's story was how grateful she was for life, despite the fact that she did not live for very long. It amazes me how she was able to maintain that attitude, and that rather than succumbing to regret over what she would not have, she chose to value what she did even more. Now that you've become more familiar with Chiara Luce's story, we'd like to share a short song with you.
Feel free to close your eyes and let the music speak to you.
Moments of love spilled out her life. Her icons of faith simply grew with time. Her open smile, her pure heart, this luminous masterpiece of love. And all she did was give it all up in the darkness of the night. And all he did was turn her world of flame and bring in light. She looked up high and light shone in her eye, as priceless as a dime. She was torn with a smile. A trail of light she left behind, a living miracle alive. Her calm ways and all of her days, serene and free, shone a brilliant ray. And all she did was give it all up in the darkness of the night. And all he did was turn her world of flame and bring in light. She looked up high and light shone in her eye, as priceless as a diamond. She was torn with a smile.
We now have a guest, Jessica from New York, whose life has been greatly impacted by Chiara Luce. Hi, Jessica. How did you meet Chiara Luce Badano, and how has she impacted your life?
There we go. Hi. So I met Chiara Luce Badano about 10 years ago. And I say met because I like to think of it as an encounter with an actual person and not just a story. And so during that time, I started to get sick with symptoms of what the doctors thought might be multiple sclerosis. And it was a difficult time for me because I had always been pretty strong. I even played basketball in college, and I'd never been faced with anything that that I couldn't win, basically. And so this possibility of this illness kind of turned those plans for my life upside down, because there are different things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do had I had this debilitating illness. And so after one of these tests, I had a spinal tap. I had some complications, and I was actually in bed for several days with just this excruciating pain. And I remember feeling just abandoned by God. I thought in that moment that, you know, that like God, if you were to help the saints, they must have always felt him present. But in that moment, I felt like he didn't even exist. And so a few days after I recovered, I came across this random article in my email inbox from a Catholic news service about this new blessed, Chiara Luce, who had just been beatified. And the article talked about how she had lived her illness of cancer. She also had felt crushed by suffering, but she saw in that suffering a visit from God. And as I was reading this article, I felt overwhelmed by the most immense feeling of joy and peace, as though Chiara Luce were entering into my own scary reality and offering her friendship. And I immediately saw her as this teammate, probably because I'd play basketball, that God had sent by my side to run next to me so that I could also make it too. And so we basically just started this adventure. I started to look for all the information I could about her, read every article, every book, just in order to imitate her life, because I saw in her someone with just this incredible grace and strength. And little by little, she helped me to see in my own suffering and uncertainty that God was present. And so I, instead of being fearful for the day, I started to wake up thinking, today I get to love. And more days of life, whatever they meant, just became more opportunities to love. And then also I would offer her my pain or fear. And if something was bothering me in that moment, or if I was fearful for something, I would tell her, Chiara Luce, with you, I don't fear anything. And it was like this espresso shot of courage. And so little by little, I realized that she was running next to me, and we were going someplace. We were going to discover the spirituality that had influenced her life so much, the spirituality of unity of the Focolare movement, that's based upon this realization of God's love and God's presence in suffering. And so even that experience of abandonment and pain I'd felt on a sick bed was not in absence of God, but it was precisely in that moment of feeling abandoned and forsaken that God was present. And so my suffering wasn't meaningless, but it had a true purpose, and it was an expression of God's love for me. And so the past 10 years, Chiara Luce has been accompanying me. After discernment, I discovered that God was calling me to live the spirituality concretely in a vocation within the Focolare movement. Now I'm in the Bronx, New York, connected with you in Vancouver. I live with 3 other consecrated women, and we try and make this commitment of mutual love so that Jesus may always be with us. And I like to think of Chiara Luce as not an isolated saint, but someone who lived unity with her parents, with her best friend Kika, with all the other youth of the Focolare movement, with her classmates who really accompanied her on that journey. And their commitment to build mutual love brought the presence of Jesus among them and kind of enveloped them in this experience of grace and joy that was actually, we can consider it a collective holiness that gave them this peace and strength even in incredible suffering. And so that's also possible for each one of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing your story with us. Your friendship with Chiara Luce is so beautiful and inspiring.
Well, thank you to all our hosts, volunteers, and attendees for making this event possible. We could not have done this without all the blood, sweat, tears, and Zoom calls put together for the celebration today.
Yes, and in the words of St. John Paul II, we want to leave you with our message that all of us are called to holiness, and that holy people alone can renew humanity.
From the spiritual journey of Carlo and Chiara Luce, we became witnesses to the transforming power of Christ. Let's learn to say yes always to God's proposal of love in one body and one spirit. As a common proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to make a saint. We need to help each other grow in holiness, especially in this time of great physical separation from one another.
This bond of peace can be strengthened in daily acts of charity, big and small. As said by Saint Teresa of Calcutta, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. We should use these saints as inspiring stories and examples, just as Jessica did in the way Chiara Luce has become a beacon and example to her.
Let the stories of these saints accompany us in our life. In following their example, we can all be saints in different ways, doing the will of God for each one of us. So we will end with an original song called Highways to Heaven. As this song is playing, we encourage you to post in the chat your thoughts and impressions of the event tonight. Your feedback is really important to us, and we'd love to hear from you. Also, after this song, we will also be taking a virtual group photo, so feel free to join in on that. But first, please enjoy the song Highways to Heaven.
There comes a time when you turn to yourself, you catch a glimpse in the mirror and you see someone else. If you look to the sky, you just get burned by the sun. But if you look up to God, that's when your journey's begun. Yeah, a highway to heaven is what you really are. My heart, my mind, my soul in a speeding car. A freeway to a new day and the toll's already paid. All I do is trust in you and the road's already laid. I'm ready to die and I'm really not afraid. Never wasted a minute on the choices that I made. The choices that would only bring me closer to you. Never making a choice that you would never approve. You were born an original, a gift of life. You were made for special things, a special life. Communion with you is like a gift that keeps on giving. Instead of slowing me down, it's like a highway to heaven. If you're always in tune with the voice of the Lord, you're like a supercomputer with a ripping motherboard. If you're having any doubts, any troubles in mind, you just turn to the book and leave the world behind. If you're living for the others and you're living for today, you're a beacon of light and you're lighting up the way. Cause you were born an original, gift of life. You were made for special things, a special life. Your gift of life. Ooh, 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 yeah. A gift of life. You were made for special things, special life. On the highway to heaven. You were born an original, a gift of life.